Welcome to the Modern Contractor Podcast. Today I have Jordan with me. He is the owner of our advertising agency that we've been using for at least, 5-6 years now? Or has it been longer than that?
Yep, about 6.
Been right around there. The name of the company is Flanker Media, and we brought him on today to talk a lot about sales, marketing, growing a brand, those type of things. And Jordan, why don't you just give us a little bit of your history in the industry?
Sure thing. So our company, Flanker Media, we've worked with small business owners, not just restricted to the contractor space, but other industries as well, for almost 10 years now. In January of this next year, we'll have hit 10 years, but have grown pretty quickly, kind of riding the wave of clients like yourself, that have experienced a lot of success in a short period of time. So we are based in Iowa. I'm in the Cedar Rapids area, but we now have kind of a footprint across the state from Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, down to the Quad Cities, and in Des Moines as well.
So we've been working for around 6 years. In that time, I think if we took a number on it, I looked back, we grew about 412% in those 6 years. And a lot of it had to do with our partnership and the different creative ideas and things that we did. You work with contractors all throughout the country. Tell me, what do the fast growing, the ones that get it, what are they doing differently than other contractors?
So, one thing that we had a discussion about early on and continue to is the sales funnel. That's not anything new to your industry or anyone in general, but when it comes to contractors, what we try to look at is, how do we reach people that are interested in what you offer, right now, or look at the seasonality of it, and then also look at the long-term game too. So for the contractors that we're looking at, we want a cohesive strategy that is, how do we move the needle now, but how do we also scale long-term? So we've got the long-term game, we've got the short-term game. How is all of that working together at every stage of the funnel? So instead of just trying to win right now, how do we look ahead to try to capture that 400% growth? It takes a lot more than marketing. Obviously, you've built huge infrastructure behind the scenes, but for those that are prepared for that, having a plan in place and sticking to it is a big part of it.
Okay, obviously I coach different contractors, and one of the things that I find, and I'm guessing you find this in yours, there's contractors at certain levels, they get really stuck in their ways, and they don't like stepping out of the box and doing something new. And do you get a lot of people coming back at you? I'm not saying in a real negative way, but they're just like, well, wait a minute, I've never done that. And how do you convince them to take that step?
Yeah, I think, the apprehension with something like that, a lot of times initially the cost investment is part of that conversation, but once you can show someone a data-based sort of estimate on where we could be, and that could be as simple as, maybe you are neglecting a whole lot of keyword research that shows people are looking for what you do, but maybe not in the way that you've been selling it so far. Some kind of data that is able to show somebody the potential of what is out there, but they just haven't tapped into yet. And then, having, going back to the sales funnel, it's like having a plan in place to not just hit the short-term goals, but where can we go from here? What's the potential we have, whether it's from an SEO perspective or just a brand lift perspective? Do people actually even know who you are, even in your backyard? Where can we go from here at every level so that you've got a clear vision? I'm going to invest this money, and as long as we stick to the plan, where can we be? And fortunately, we've worked with a lot of dealers, especially pellet dealers, that have stuck to that plan, have started to see it come to fruition.
So we have a common friend or client for you, friend for me, but with Nick and Myra that you worked with on their Google stuff. And I hadn't had a chance to talk to you, but just last week, if we could have taped what Nick said, it would be a great testimonial for you and I both, as far as from a coaching perspective and from a marketing perspective. But they're busier than they've ever been with leads, and a lot of them are coming from what you turned on for them. What's the quickest thing you can do for a contractor to get people walking through their door?
Yeah, so when we start looking at that bottom of the funnel, the folks that are, interested right now, they're looking to make a decision, and you kind of want to elbow your way into that conversation quickly. One thing that seems to get neglected or people are just unaware of are local service ads. So it's a Google product. I still kind of consider it in a bit of a beta mode. If you live in the Google world and you know how those tools interact, it's still kind of a disjointed product related to the rest of what they offer. But the reason we feel like it's so powerful is, one, it's based on a pay per lead model. So you're not paying unless somebody follows through with an action. Typically that's a phone call, it could be a text message or a message directly through the portal. And it's the tippy top result of your classic Google search. So it shows up even above the pay-per-click results. So for the folks that want this giant billboard, even if somebody doesn't click on it right away, that's rotating at the top of search results, that's the way to go. And I think it leads into another point too, that part of our long-term plan is always, SEO related. How do we make sure that we're showing up in the searches that are of the highest value to us? What kind of technical steps can we take on the back end to reach that point? But Google search anymore, and of course they just rolled out some big updates that are continuing to change the game. But from a paid perspective, there's really about 3 different layers of paid results before you even get to organic anymore. So playing the game to be present in some of those sponsored elements above the organic results is pretty important in our eyes.
What's the biggest marketing mistake contractors make?
If we're talking about it, let's kind of keep it within the realm of some of the pellet dealers here that we've worked with. I think they just don't really know where to go, or they don't have any infrastructure on the back end to track what they've done. I think that's a huge thing too. You want to pitch somebody a long-term plan. In order for us to be accountable, there has to be some kind of mechanisms on the back end for us to report on each month, because we're very much about accountability. So if we're going to spend your money, even if it's on TV, we're going to try to find some ways to show the before and after. And so, to a contractor that's never really advertised anywhere before, first of all, some of them don't have a CRM. I think we should start there. Some kind of tracking on the back end, where your leads are coming in, what's the source of those leads beyond what we're reporting, and then tying revenue to that. But making sure that we've got all of the back end infrastructure in place, that regardless of how much we're spending, that we're able to tie the KPIs to a particular campaign that we're running. That's usually a huge issue.
We worked with Nick and Myra, but then I have a couple clients right now that I'm working with that one has a website, but it's not any way you can't find it. Another doesn't really have a really coherent place. A website's pretty important, right? To where a place we can take people and go to.
So is your Google business profile. I think there's so many elements to, just your web presence in general. Taking advantage of free placements across the web, whether it's gathering reviews, not just through Google, but other places, to make sure that you have some sort of social proof sprinkled throughout the web. So, talking about Nick's Painting Plus, something we kind of helped them with too. There was plenty that we added to their Google business profile to make sure that somebody that was looking for some of those services, those things were married up. Keywords within Google searches. This can be difficult, but even coaching your customers to say, hey, we really appreciate you leaving us a review. If you could, try to include some of these relevant keywords about what we did for you, because even AI now is starting to parcel out some of those keyword results within your reviews to recommend you as well.
So AI is looking at text of Google reviews to find the words. So if I was giving myself a review on We Build Them a Deck, I want decking in there, for sure.
Yeah, say they rebuilt our deck with TimberTech. They added a louvered roof. The communication was great. Blah blah blah. They really detail the process, because whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, a lot of times you'll see in the results, if somebody asks, who's a reputable deck contractor near me, they'll say customers say, based on 500 Google reviews, based at an average of 4.9, that this contractor does XYZ. So it's a pretty thorough scrubbing of your web footprint.
What so you brought it up, now we have to talk about it. AI.
Yeah. Yep.
And we talk about that with my site. I always get something emailed me about it and I forward it to you for you to defend yourself or tell me what the situation is or what
Yeah.
what do you see in your client list and stuff? How do you think we got a pretty good score? I can't remember what the site's called, but there's a place where you can get a score about how your site is reacting with AI chatbots and everything. What we got, I think we got 71% out of 100, and most contractors, I was told, get between like 18% and 20. So not doing bad, but how do you see it affecting what you do?
So obviously, like the industry-wide buzzword right now, there's certainly a lot of fear being put out there, I think, in the small business community about being left behind. But I'm going to say one thing that's a little bit controversial in the short term, which is overemphasizing your presence on AI could be a mistake. Now, obviously, we want to plan long term for it, but if we put all of our eggs in that basket right now, I think you're going to be disappointed, only because it hasn't quite gotten to the point where all age groups are using that like a traditional search engine. A great example of that being, we just had a client this week that asked, they're like, hey, we feel like, we need to be taking advantage of AI. Like, what are you guys doing? First of all, we tell them all the time what we're doing. But we had a report that showed they were the number one result across all of the four major LLMs as it stood right now. And that goes back all the way to the beginning of 2026. Of the 4,000, I remember this number, of the 4,027 users that came to their website, how many of them came from any of those four LLMs? 15.
50.
Zero conversions. It's not that it doesn't matter, it will matter. But I think, especially when you look at within any particular industry, who's pulling the trigger most often? If your average customer is middle-aged or a little bit older, some of them may be on kind of the tech laggard side of things. So it's certainly something you look ahead to, and you should be planning your content around the types of more long tail keyword or FAQ kinds of searches that people are doing around AI. And there's a whole plan that we have in place. But I wouldn't expect AI to be a huge driver of your revenue at this moment in time if you're a small business contractor.
What channel are your clients, all the channel? You got TV, you got direct mail, which one are they scared of the most?
Broadcast TV. I look back at our conversation even 6 years ago. You kind of told me your grand vision for where you wanted to go and where you had advertised previously. And I wouldn't say there was necessarily pushback, but I think the investment that was tied to what we wanted to do in your market with broadcast was substantial. And you were at the stage of your company where you were ready to take that investment, but it was more than you ever had. And so there's certainly also a lot of people that look at broadcast TV almost in the same vein as AI, is that, everybody's streaming now, nobody watched broadcast TV. Well, there is a generation, a moving window of a generation that their habits are very much tied to local news or that types of programming. And so I think we made a huge splash 6 years ago when we really went all in on broadcast TV in your market. And we've continued to do so in other markets as well, with a demographic that, for better or worse, is probably holding a little bit more income than anybody else. So,
Okay, I remember the time you called me,
yeah.
and Naveed, our friend, said you need to listen to him. You need to do what he says. He used to be a person where you worked with as well, and he was our rep for. So he flat out just told me, you're going to do what he says. And I said, okay, well, we'll see about that. And then I remember the conversation. You came at me. I wasn't nervous about the money. I wasn't at all. I mean, I understand you got to take risks. You got to invest, and to take the next step. The only thing is I wouldn't let you do a certain type of advertising. I said, sure, we're going to do my message. We're not going to do buy 5, get 4 free, any of that. don't. So we did some really good Pella related commercials, but then we did some very self-deprecating commercials of me, and now we have a baby that runs around and and act is in the commercials and everything. Let's talk about it. I feel like we found something where the message being so different than what you see from most contractors, most home service pros, that we've really hit something. I mean, we've talked about it. We've grown over 400% since we started those TV ads. Yep. And I'm not saying it's all because of that, because I've added a lot of people. I've done a lot of other things to grow the business. But those really helped. But it's completely a different message than any advertising person would have told me to do.
Yeah, for sure. And different than what, other people had even suggested to you previously. Total honesty, transparency in our point, we continue to rip off your ideas in other markets. So thank you.
Well, that's good because they work. And it's not just, it's the whole thing. It's my whole company, the people we have around. It's the reputation we've all built. It's not just about me being creative or whatever, but it does make it, if I could tell contractors anything, the message doesn't need to be what you see all the time. It doesn't need, I'm here right now, it's Culligan, or no, it's Jacuzzi. On Fox News, Jacuzzi Bass. They're having this big sale, 50% off, or no, free labor. They're not going to charge you anything for labor. They're just going to charge you for the tub. I mean, I know there's still people out there, but there's so much more effective ways to reach an audience.
Yeah, how much is that tub then? Somebody's got to make money.
Well, the tub's marked up 100%, so we are 200% or 300%. I mean, we know that, or that 50% off labor. Well, any company that runs regular ads about having 50% off labor, they're going to have a hard time being around if they continually are really giving 50% off labor.
Sure.
Do you run into a lot of clients that you're talking with that have that, and you're kind of trying to turn them in a different direction?
Well, we're working with one now in the Arizona market who pretty much came to us and said, I am tired of being on that hamster wheel. Can you help me get off of it? And there's another, quote, I don't know if it came from you or who it came from, but, getting into a race to the bottom, a mistake other contractors make is that you might win, right? So undercutting yourself in all of your messaging, either primes people just to wait for some kind of promotion to buy, or they don't see the value in what you're trying to do, or they understand it's a gimmick, like we've already talked about. So what you've done a tremendous job at, and what we've replicated in some of the other markets, is saying, this is a huge investment. If we're talking about full home window replacement, siding replacement, you want it done right, because most of these people are planning on living in their homes a long time. So let's get a price that we're not, messing around with you on. We're going to also back it up with a pretty awesome warranty. And yeah, there's no other gimmicks. It's a straightforward, we're all about honesty and transparency. And by the way, and I think what really made us successful early on too, was talking about the exclusivity of your Pella status at the time, and continue to be. I mean, last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Pella Dealer of the Year, right? Is that how it's worded?
Close, yeah.
Close, yeah. So, being one of this.
It's actually the Pella, let's see if I can do this right. The Pella Platinum Premier Contractor of the Year. Okay. And there's 11 Pella Platinum Premier Contractors.
Okay, which, yeah, is the top, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's because of my team. I didn't earn that. My team earned that.
But collectively, you're the top of the top. So that messaging, that strategy, it's resonated with homeowners, and obviously you followed through, because you can only get away so long with not standing by your word. So, credit to your team for establishing that level of credibility in your market. But it has been a cornerstone of our messaging elsewhere too. Even the Pella Platinum level, which you were when we started, awarded to less than 1% of contractors nationwide. So we really leveraged that message into, okay, if you want it done right, you work with a leader. And here's a few other reasons why you're not going to go through that painful sales gimmick, high pressure sales process with us.
What's the easiest way to reach out if they were interested in talking to you about their marketing efforts?
Well, I'll tell you our URL, and some people are taken aback by it. I'll tell you a funny story quick. So, almost 10 years ago when I started my company, I had the name Flanker Media. I went to go purchase that URL. And if you do enter flankermedia.com now, you'll reach our website. But our actual URL is attackopportunity.com, which is our tagline. A Russian beer company owned flankermedia.com at the time. So I had to wait until that expired for me to snatch it up.
Flanker Media was a Russian beer company?
Yeah, that was the landing page.
Thought it would have been vodka. What's your preferred client? What kind of companies do you like working with?
Well, active owners like yourself that know where they want to be, but they're wearing a lot of hats, and so they could use some help getting there. We typically focus on head counts of under 100 as far as small businesses go. And we really specialize in that paid media strategy. But as you know, we've put together the long-term SEO, AI, content, related kinds of game plan as well. So we're a full service agency, but we do really specialize in paid media strategy.
Tell me, you must come across companies that marketing isn't the real issue. Like you get somebody, you start talking to them, and you can just sense that, marketing is not your issue. You got a lot of business things. I mean, when you sense that, what are usually the problems that you see? And even if you talk them into doing marketing, or getting more leads, that it really wouldn't benefit them.
Well, we've run into that, somewhat recently where we had worked with somebody who the lead numbers continue to go up, but the follow through, their scheduling rate was going down. And so, the question from the client is like, why aren't the leads as quality as they used to be? And so we kind of had to have a tough conversation to look at all the factors that were in play since the 4 years previous that we had started with them, which were they had competitors that came into the market that were offering things that they weren't, or at least were communicating things to clients that they weren't. And sometimes I think whether it is the infrastructure on the back end to make sure that you're measuring where things come from accurately so you can make accurate changes, or trying to take a look holistically at how the business is run. Do we need to adapt? Adapt to the times. I think something that you've been really good about too in the last few years, as there's younger homeowners that maybe are paying a higher interest rate for the home that they may have had a third of that number or third of that rate 5 years ago, maybe more price conscious about certain things and giving them more flexible financing options, or different service or product options for them, whether it's certain kinds of partial repairs versus full replacements, just being flexible and understanding where people are. And I think that's the advantage of working with an active owner too, is that they're involved enough to where they understand what's happening in their market. Whereas sometimes you work with larger companies and the ownership maybe lives elsewhere and just isn't quite aware of what's going on the ground.
Well, Jordan, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And I want to tell everybody that I can personally vouch. I've worked with them for about 6 years. We've done incredible things at my home improvement company. And obviously this is my coaching podcast, but it's attackopportunity.com, and Flanker Media is the company name. Jordan's his name. And Jordan, I really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having us along for the ride all these years.
You bet. It's been fun.
Has been. I appreciate it.